And hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News, the South Florida Conservative News Center. It is Saturday, June 6th, 9:45 a.m. And those of you who are watching elections everywhere, especially the primary election out there in Los Angeles, with reality star Spencer Pratt versus two socialists, you will have heard the story of the famous last minute voter dump that occurred and the huge amount of votes that came in for the socialists, whereas Spencer Pratt got actually zero. Not around zero, but zero. People are starting to think there's going to be voter fraud in California. Imagine that. And we're going to talk about the numbers, a little math here for you. It's never my strong suit, but I know the applications. So, not the politics of the personalities or even Spencer Pratt and how charming he is. We're talking about the probability because sometimes a single number will tell you much more than especially an Associated Press or Reuters story. And in this case, the number was zero. On election night in Los Angeles, vote updates appeared showing tens of thousands of new votes being added to the totals for Mayor Karen Bass and Councilwoman Nithya Raman. I guess it's Nithya. Who cares? She was put in there to draw votes away from Spencer Pratt. At the same time, Spencer Pratt appeared to receive not nearly, exactly zero new votes. And social media went crazy. Was it fraud? A computer glitch? Was it reporting delay? What was it going on? The media quickly moved to cover, as they will. Associated Press, especially, and Los Angeles election officials argued that Pratt's votes had not disappeared at all. Instead, they said the reporting feed updated in two separate stages, creating the temporary appearance that Pratt had received no votes. And bizarre, but maybe it's true and maybe it isn't. But before we can evaluate any explanation, we need to understand why so many people immediately reacted the way they did. And it starts with a thing called mathematics. So let's imagine for a moment that, get out your pens and pencils. Let's imagine for a moment that Spencer Pratt had only 5% support among the voters. Not true, but we'll say it. Not 25%, not 30%, not running neck and neck and even beating Karen Bass in most markets, but just 5%. Now imagine a vote update containing approximately 22,000 ballots appears. The simple arithmetic tells us that 5% of the 22,000 is about 1,100 votes. And that's what probability would expect there to be, right? Even if Pratt had only 1% support, maybe it was a district that hated white people and hated reality stars and hated men, West Hollywood or something, yeah, whatever. Even if he had only 1% support, probability would still expect more than 200 votes. Not zero votes, 200 votes. And this is where the statistics becomes important for those of you at home. The issue isn't that zero is impossible, because with statistics, anything is possible. Almost nothing in statistics is truly impossible. It's how you word it. The issue is that zero becomes so unlikely that reasonable people immediately start asking questions. And here's the example they would have given you in class. Imagine flipping a coin 22,000 times and getting no heads. It's technically possible. It's practically unbelievable. And that's what the Associated Press and the Los Angeles election people want you to believe that they are observing. The situation becomes even more interesting when we consider who Spencer Pratt was in the race. This wasn't an unknown candidate receiving a few scattered votes. He was running, they'll say second, I'll say tied, if not leading, in many reported returns and remained competitive in the race for a runoff position. In other words, this was not some fringe guy with 1% support. This was someone receiving tens of thousands of votes across Los Angeles. That's why the apparent update attracted so much attention. People intuitively understood the candidates don't simply vanish from large vote batches, unless it's batches that are received after hours in large undescript bags, right? Especially candidates who have been accumulating votes all evening. The mathematics looked wrong, and when the mathematics looks wrong, people become suspicious, not because they are conspiracy theorists, but they are reasoning human beings and are naturally skeptical when presented with outcomes that appear to violate basic probability. Now, my favorite asshole in this group is the Associated Press. The Associated Press quickly responded because it's their job to cover this, right? By cover it, I mean cover it up. According to their explanation, there was never a real vote batch in which Pratt received 0 votes. Instead, they say the reporting system pushed updates in separate stages. Bass and Raman appeared in one update, which is the socialists, and then I guess the non-socialists, which was Pratt, appeared in another update roughly 1 minute later. Anyone who understands the computer programming will be able to tell you the lies that are going on in this story, but we'll just skip that and go back to this. So Pratt supposedly appears in another update roughly 1 minute later. Now, if that's true, then the statistical anomaly disappears, which is why they wrote it the way they did. The issue shifts from election counting to data presentation. And also, the next question is, what kind of crazy computer program would do what we just said? And why would you have that? Because it would give you voter instability, right? You immediately have lost your faith in the election cycle. And if the issue shifts from election counting to data presentation, and that distinction matters, because a counting problem and a reporting problem are not the same thing. But here's where things will get interesting as well. Many Americans no longer trust institutions to simply tell them everything is fine. You'd be stupid to do that in this current era, especially since I would say the end of Bush's last year or so, and then Obama, of course, and then Biden. Whether that skepticism is justified or not, it exists. And when trust is low, explanations are subjected to much greater scrutiny. The AP story just sounds stupid. The computer company would be questioned, and they have not released any kind of information. So you know what you know, right? So notice something important. The real debate is no longer about the statistics. The statistics are actually straightforward. We just gave it to you with the coin story. A genuine 22,000 ballot batch producing 0 votes for a candidate like Pratt would be extraordinary and likely. And by that was a capital E for extraordinary. The debate is now about the systems. Did the reporting feed work exactly as described? Did the updates occur precisely when officials claim they occurred? Can the logs, this is the important one if you believe their story, can the logs be independently verified? Can outside observers examine the sequence? Those are transparency questions, and when they are going to be asked by Pratt's people, which they will if he loses, there's a good chance that the Los Angeles election board is going to tell him to go pound sand. That is not a probability issue. And transparency matters because elections depend on public confidence. A democracy doesn't merely need accurate vote counts. It needs citizens who believe those vote counts are accurate. And in a city like Los Angeles and a state like California, there is a very low believability level for anything that is operating under the rule of law. And there is a broader lesson here for us. Modern elections involve multiple layers of technology. And the votes are counted, the data is entered. Where in this food chain can you be attacked? Where can your vote be thrown in the trash? The votes are counted, data is entered, information is transmitted, the media is immediately spinning. Websites are going to give the results, and you have social media, blah, blah, blah. The public often sees only the final display. They rarely see how the sausage is made. And in this day and age, everybody wants to know what's in your sausage. So that means even innocent technical problems can generate enormous political controversy. I will look into it further about the computer program. I do not think we are going to see anything from that company because it's going to be one of two things. You'll blame the dummies that work for the city, and then they will fall on their sword because they know Karen Bass will to protect them. But if it was an outside company, you're going to have to find out what the story was. But it doesn't make sense because let's just do the usual thing. Let's play the alphabet game, unless I'm wrong. Bass, Pratt, Raman. So if it was done alphabetically, Pratt would have been on with Bass, right? If it was done women and then a guy, then of course Pratt's on the outside. If it was done socialists and then a moderate, then of course Pratt is on the outside. You have to wonder why the two socialist candidates are lumped together and what was the computer trying to do? Obviously, as you know, Rahman was the least abhorrent socialist of the two, being Bass, having gone to Cuba and taken communist classes. So she was able to strip a certain amount of votes away from Spencer Pratt, but not enough to zero out entire community. Los Angeles isn't set that way. The problem that they do have is fake voting still, right? All these mail-in ballots, we have mail-in ballots in Florida, and they try to work with it. I think they should all be gone because what it does is it gives the opposition, especially here in my county, Broward, which is not known for the best elections on the planet. We're right up there with fucking Mexico and Cuba. Yeah, you'd worry about who's getting elected where. The Republican Party in this area tries to get, if you have the mail-in ballot, to do that so early they have a number, I guess, so that when they have a situation like this, where you get no votes the night of the thing, then you can raise the concern. But losing and coming back from a loss is very hard. I mean, that's the stupidest thing to do. This is not like when you have a really good lawyer who says we're going to lose, but we're going to win on the appeal. That's not going to happen in a lot of places for election voting. So keep your eye on this thing with Spencer Pratt. He ran a good race. All the usual stories they're going to tell you about how this works don't count because this was a Democratic primary. He ran as a Democrat, unless I'm completely wrong, which Bass says this was to run because whoever's the Democrat usually beats the Republicans because there's 6 of them in Los Angeles. So they can't play party line. They can play racism. They can play sexism. They can play all the other games, but that would be the quote unquote socialist Democrats throwing all those racist terms at Spencer Pratt. Funny how that's allowed to happen. But either way, those of you people in LA, you have my condolences for being in LA. And let's see what happens because on paper, it can't exist. You go to zero, a 0 vote in that would mean a number very close to 0, meaning it's almost impossible to have happened. So there you have it. Go back and study your math. Talk to you later.